Hey, you're listening to the Riverdale podcast. This is episode number 93. My name is Jonathan. Welcome to lovely Riverdale, USA. This is a weekly Archie Comics fan podcast. We update every Saturday morning, and every week we break things down into 4 categories. The first category is the book of the week. That's the comic book I read this week. Sometimes it's a new comic book, sometimes it's an old comic book, but it's always an Archie comic book. We move then to the news of the week. That's what happened in the world of Archie in the week since our last podcast. Then on to new releases. That's what came out this past Wednesday. Will be coming up this coming Wednesday from Archie Comics. And this week we're going to wrap up talking about Sam Hill. We got new Sam Hill stuff coming in the coming year. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, at the end of the show, we're talking about the plans for the next couple weeks of shows, wrapping up this year and going into next year. Stick around for that. Let's get excited. Let's get pumped. Let's get into the book of the week. You guys, this week's book of the week is Life with Archie, number 33. And I do not have enough nice things to say about Life with Archie ever. I never run out of great things to say about Life with Archie. This has been consistently one of my favorite books. And I mean, just counting its attributes, you have Paul Kupperberg writing it, a man who's been writing comics since the 1970s, maybe the late 60s. I did a great interview with him earlier this year. If we're talking about year-end wrap-ups and things like that, go back and check out that interview we did earlier this year with Paul Kupperberg. Really sweet, really kind guy, and just a veteran of the comics industry, and a real master at his craft. He's able to write comic books, specifically with Life with Archie. He's able to write this comic book that is written in a very classic style without being a dated style. He's able to do things like give you information in the dialogue. He's able, which is something that isn't done in comic books anymore. He'll give you a little bit of catch-up when you meet a new person or you see a person you haven't seen in a while. In the dialogue balloon, they'll say, "Hey, so-and-so, how's that thing you've been doing?" Which is, I guess, can play as corny in a superhero comic, but in a comic like this where you're dealing with so many characters and you're dealing with so much soap opera, it's just a little device, a little tool in the toolbox to help the reader catch up and play along. And it's a classic bit of writing, and it's something I really appreciate about what he does. And I'm sure there's tons of stuff in here that I'm not even recognizing. There's a lot of subtlety to the way that he works. Maybe less subtlety in the story beats, because this is a big soap operatic tale. But Paul Kupperberg, great stuff. Of course, Fernando Ruiz, we have drawing the Archie Loves Veronica half of the book. Fantastic stuff. We've got the Kennedys, Pat and Tim, drawing the Archie Loves Betty half of the book. Just great draftsmen, great folks. Really, I someday when this series wraps up, hopefully not in the near future, in the far, far future when this wraps up, I think we'll be able to go back and look at this series as a whole, and hopefully people will understand the gravity of just how cool this series is. Also, how great is it to have consistent art teams? How about Fernando and the Kennedys came on with issue 9 or 10, I believe, somewhere in the single issues, the single digits, I think, when Norm Brayfogle left. It's been a consistent ride for 20-plus issues, which is something you don't get in modern comic books anymore. So a great consistent art team, consistent writer in Paul Kupperberg, who came in with that second issue. And great stuff, I think. Not to... I guess I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think if you want a mature Archie comic book, I myself am not going to go with Afterlife with Archie. I'm going to go with Life with Archie. And perhaps you don't have to choose. But I think if you're looking for a mature take on the Archie characters. You can do no better than Life with Archie. But having said all that, let's get into the actuality of this issue. The specifics here. Issue number 33. We begin, as we do each issue, with the Archie and Veronica storyline. In this, Veronica has been framed, and there's some great courtroom drama here. When's the last time you saw courtroom drama in a comic? Maybe Daredevil? I don't know. I'm not reading it. But cool stuff there. And Sam Hill shows up. Sam Hill showed up in the last issue, number 32, which we got months ago, way back in September. And I love the way that Fernando draws him. Not quite in the Archie house style. I mean, the book itself is sort of a matured house style for Archie. And then he draws Sam Hill a little more like a real person. A little more realistically. And then we get into the Kevin Keller storyline. And one thing I've noticed, specifically in this issue, is they're starting to give you, I don't know whether this is intentional or unintentional, but they're starting to give you a little bit of physical difference between the characters in one reality and the other reality. Of course, we're dealing with Archie and Veronica, and then in the other half of the book, Archie and Betty. And just something as simple as in this Archie and Veronica story, Kevin Keller has little sideburns. And in the other half of the book, he doesn't. And I think for a book like this, where you're dealing with the same cast of characters in one side and the other side, and they're doing different things and have different motivations and are completely different characters almost, it's cool to have just a little subtle thing like that. And I wonder if that's something that was called for in the script, or something that they decided on, or whether that's something that's happening organically as they're going in two completely separate directions with these storylines. But I thought that was really cool. And we have a great moment between Jughead and Ethel, where Ethel is quite jealous that Midge is coming to town. And again, when Midge shows up, she has chopped off her hair. It is super, super short. So now, when we see Midge in the Archie and Veronica universe, she's going to be distinctly different than in the Archie and Betty universe. That is, again, super helpful. I was really heartened in my talk with Paul Kupperberg earlier this year that he also sometimes has a hard time differentiating what happened in each of these two universes. So, classic stuff here. We have the whole gang reuniting at Jughead's chocolate shop. And as I read this, I think I just had a genuine appreciation for how nice it is to see all of these characters grown up and happy and together at the chocolate shop. It's just a really warm, cool moment. And we get a big moment between Jughead and Ethel on the final page of this story. Archie, Veronica, Kevin, Midge, and Jughead and Ethel all in that final splash page. Cool stuff. Love that. Moving on to Archie Marries Betty. We open with a cool splash page. I like these nice big splash pages to open the stories. And this has a nice bit of perspective. It's just a simple panel of Archie and Betty in the school hallway. But there's a nice perspective to it. I like the way, and I don't know who to attribute this to. This is Pat and Tim Kennedy penciling this. I believe we have, let me check the inker on this. I like to credit the inkers. Jim Amish has got the inks on this one. Bob Smith inking the other half of the book. So I'm not sure who to attribute this to, but Pat and Tim Kennedy always do a really good job on the folds of clothing. All of the clothing that people wear looks very realistic and is moving and has a sort of life to it. And it's not overworked. I think something like that can be overwrought. You get into the sort of Jim Lee cross-hatching and all of that. Looks really good. I also love Pat and Tim Kennedy's Mr. Weatherby. He is like a big, like, walrus of a dude. He's cartoonishly big, and he's got this little head, And somehow they pull it off. Somehow it looks really great. There's something very quintessential about it, and he seems larger than life, I think, which is how they're portraying him in this. He's very like old and noble, I guess, in this half of the book. And he has a nice moment of reflecting on the class of whatever year Archie eventually graduates. But he's talking to Betty and Kevin Keller and the press about their graduating year and how special those kids were, which we all know. We all know how special those kids are. And as I've talked about, when we talked about the last issue, we have a lot of high drama, cool stuff in the Archie and Veronica half of the book. We've got Sam Hill coming in to solve this big mystery. And the second half of the book, Archie marries Betty. We've been sort of languishing a little bit. We've had a lot of issues, it seems like, where Archie is just upset that Betty has taken on all of these responsibilities at school and is neglecting him. And it seemed like we were wrapping that up a few issues back when he had a big heart-to-heart with his parents about it, and they sort of set him straight. But that doesn't seem to have been the case, as we've just had him sort of moping around for the last few issues. But with the end of last issue and a few scenes in this issue, we see him setting things up with Beasley. Why am I forgetting her first name? The classic Miss Beasley's daughter, Bella Beasley, is really coming on to Archie. And that's adding some good drama. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Also, Jughead in a black flag shirt in this half of the book. I love that. And some drama going on with Mr. Weatherby and this woman he's been seeing. A great moment with Cheryl Blossom and Veronica. Just great soap opera-y stuff. I guess I keep going back to that when I talk about this book, is that it has set all of these storylines in motion, and they're sort of like, running themselves. They sort of have a life of their own. I'm sure that Paul Kupperberg would disagree, but they just have a momentum to them. And then with each issue, we sort of go in and check in on each of those story beats and follow those storylines a bit. And there's something refreshing about that format. There's something really, really nice about this. There really isn't another book out there like Life with Archie. Really excited to have Life with Archie number 33 out this week. And that is your book, our book, the book, book of the week, Life with Archie number 33. All right, Archie news this week. Cool stuff coming out of Archie this week, of course. You may have already read about this. This is a cool thing. Archie's working with Toys for Tots this year. Toys for Tots is, of course, the organization here in the United States that collects toys and distributes them to folks who need them around Christmas time. And this premiered with a short story that ran in Archie Double Digest number 246. Forgetting the writer on that one. Jeff Schultz drew it, which was rad. Love to see new Jeff Schultz stuff. But Archie is donating a ton of comics, a crazy $1 million price tag of comics to Toys for Tots, and is encouraging others to do the same. So that's cool. And maybe this came out last week with Archie Double Digest number 246, but I'm not sure whether that launched last week or this week. I thought it had been coming out last week. Some sources said it came out this week. I don't have my hands on it, unfortunately. But Archie giving comics to Toys for Tots, that's a cool thing. That news was brought to us by Comics Alliance this week. I believe it was picked up by a lot of sources. That's where I found it. It was over at Comics Alliance. Over at Comic Book Resources this week, they gave us the listing of the sort of top tier of Free Comic Book Day. Free Comic Book Day is going to be the first Saturday of May, I believe, every year. It definitely is in May. I believe it's the first Saturday. And this year, Archie's going with another free digest, another free 96-page reprint book. Totally rad. Last year's was a lot of fun. I think we talked about it on the show, actually. I think we reviewed it. And this coming year, 2014's Free Comic Book Day. I'm sure will be no exception. We got a cover by Dan Parent. Looks like a variation on the Best of Archie Comics Volume 2, Volume 3. It's artwork we've seen before, but nonetheless, cool to get a free Archie digest coming up in May. Also, this week, this was a cool thing I picked up on over at Archie Digital. I haven't purchased it and checked it out, but I definitely plan to. It looks like a lot of fun. This is Archie Plus. I don't know if this is a new line or what, but the shape this takes is they have released a second version of Archie number 650, which we talked about last week. If you don't have it, go get it. And if you don't have it, maybe this is the version you want to get. For an extra couple dollars, $4.99 is the price tag on this one. It's digital-only release, so you get it through digital.archiecomics.com or the digital store, Comixology, Archie Comics app. You know, there's a lot of places to get it. And this, it has some bonus content. It has a script. It has some variant covers. Purportedly, again, I haven't bought it, haven't checked it out, but it seems like a great idea. And as they already have the branding of Archie Plus up there in the top corner, I assume that this is going to be a running thing if it's supported and is successful. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm really interested to see what a Dan Parent script looks like, considering he drew the issue as well. So it's interesting that he would write a full script and then draw from that. But anyway, Archie Plus, that's cool. Also, this week, a bunch of stuff, so much news this week. We got a couple of the covers for Afterlife with Archie number 5, which we'll be seeing in March. And who's got it? Comic Book Resources has the Andrew Peepoy variant. This is sort of Andrew's counterpoint to his variant for the first issue, which is a very revealing portrait of Betty. This is a very revealing portrait of Veronica. But a great piece of art and some cool, like, digital, I assume, like lace inlay. You'll have to check it out. But Andrew Peepoy is a great artist. We don't see enough of his work at Archie. I'm excited to see that. And we got the classic cover by Francesco Francavilla. And that is over at HollywoodReporter.com. All those links are at RiverdalePodcast.com if you want to go check them out. Finally, in the news this week, the Archie Awards. This is the brainchild of Luke, who does everythingsluke.blogspot.com, a great resource for old school Archie information. Did a whole history of Archie. I've talked about his blog at length, everythingsluke.blogspot.com. He is doing the Archie Awards for the second year, so head over to archiefans.com. You'll find all of the categories there. You can vote on your favorite book and a bunch of different categories there. Favorite digest, favorite reprints, all that stuff. And I assume that we'll be getting the results of that in the first week of January, first couple weeks of January. And as soon as I have that, I'll report it back to you guys. But you should definitely head over to archiefans.com and vote. So that is the news for the week. Again, Archie donating to Toys for Tots. Free Comic Book Day solicits are revealed. Archie Plus, hopefully a new line of cool bonus material. Afterlife with Archie number 5, covers and variants, and the Archie Awards. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. You'll find the links. You'll find the show notes for this show, and they'll have links to all of those stories. So head over and check them out. New releases for this past Wednesday, the 11th of December, are as follows. Jughead Double Digest, number 198, for $3.99. Our book of the week, Life with Archie, number 33, for $3.99. And Mega Man, number 32, for $2.99. Jumping ahead to next week, this coming Wednesday, December the 18th, we're going to get the World of Archie Double Digest number 34 for $3.99. That is the last of the Christmas time Double Digests, and out just in time for you to kick back and read on Christmas vacation. If you are lucky enough to have a Christmas vacation, what better way to spend it than reading World of Archie Double Digest number 34, coming out next week for $3.99. And as I just mentioned, out this week on the digital shop, Archie Plus, Archie number 650. Head over and grab that in the digital store. $4.99, bonus material, script book, whole thing. Really excited about that. So those are your new releases for this past Wednesday, the 11th, this coming Wednesday, the 18th, and your digital releases of the week from Archie. Finally, today, we're going to talk a little bit about Sam Hill, and I say a very little bit because that's what I wanted to discuss. In the coming year, we'll be getting our first new Sam Hill material in 60 years, courtesy of writer Tom DeFalco and artist Greg Scott. And the interesting thing about Sam Hill is that he had a real short run of comics back in the 50s. He showed up in the Night at the Comic Shop Parts 1 and 2 storylines, which came out in the last, 8 or 10 years, quite a while back now. And, of course, he's showing up now in Life with Archie. He's shown up in issues 32 and 33 so far. And there have been rumors forever about us seeing new Sam Hill material. And to back up a little bit, Sam Hill is a detective character. He is that hard-boiled, quote-unquote hard-boiled. I never understood what that term meant, but that sort of noir-esque private detective. And so being a private detective, he has a sort of odd role in the world of Archie comics. But with the launch of the Red Circle line, with the success of the New Crusaders and the Fox, in the Red Circle imprint, they're bringing him back with this trade paperback coming out next year. And as I said, there had been talk about bringing back Sam Hill as far as like 4 or 5 years back. I remember them discussing it at San Diego panels and stuff. Just as an aside, maybe there was an audience question and they answered it or whatever. But it looks like it has a release date of this summer. And our first sort of glimpse of that was last August over on Bleeding Cool. They released a whole bunch of Archie's book plans for 2014. As we've been learning, Archie's really pushing into the book market, and they're planning 100+ titles coming out in 2014. So makes sense that they would want to use the characters that they own, that they would want to expand the Red Circle universe as it's becoming successful. So back in August, we got a cover for it, presumably some artwork by Greg Scott. Looks great. And just came across a solicit, and I wanted to share that with you. This is a solicit just pulled off of Amazon.com, but sounds good. And the solicit reads, Sam Hill, hard-boiled private investigator, encounters thieves, thugs, conmen, and femme fatales in a quest to discover the truth behind the death of a wealthy client's husband with connections to the dark underworld of crime. Sam Hill has a witty comeback for every situation he encounters, and he's guaranteed to get to the bottom of every crime. Includes an all-new Sam Hill story by Tom DeFalco and Greg Scott, plus a bonus story featuring the first ever appearance of Sam Hill with art by comics legend Harry Lucy. That sounds fantastic, you guys. And the thing about Sam Hill is that he had a series that ran for a very brief time, I think 11 issues, and we haven't seen any new material from him since, and none of that stuff has been reprinted as near as I can tell. I would love to see a digital exclusive like they've done with Pat the Brat or Cosmo the Merry Martian, something like that, collecting all of that stuff. But maybe they're going to make us wait for it. Maybe we're going to have to, wait and check out these books when they come out. But in any event, Sam Hill, an important part of Archie history, and cool to see Tom DeFalco coming back and writing for Archie. Really, really excited about this book, and wanted to bring it up while it was on my mind, while I was thinking about it, while we had Sam Hill and Life with Archie. But excited and looking forward to that book. the most important way that you can support the show is by listening every week. Heading over to RiverdalePodcast.com and listening, or subscribing on iTunes. That is the number one best way to support the show, is to listen every week. If you want to go a little further than that, you can write an iTunes review. You can tell your friends. You can spread the word. You can get out there and shout from the rooftops. But if you want to help financially, you can head over to RiverdalePodcast.com and click that link for TFA, Things from Another World. Get all your collected editions, all your single issues, all your toys and statues and prop replicas, probably, all of that crazy stuff. Anything you would buy from your comic shop, you can get from Things from Another World at a great discounted price. And if you head over to RiverdalePodcast.com and click that link and head over there from our site, you will ensure that anything you spend will support the show. A percentage of the money that you spend after going through the link will kick back to our show, and that'll give us a little bit of capital to keep the show running. So if you want to help out the show, listen every week, write an iTunes review, tell your friends. And if you want to help out, head over to RiverdalePodcast.com, click that link for Things from Another World. All right, a programming note. I'm not sure what's going to go down with next week's show. I am getting married next week. I am getting married on Friday the 20th. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the show next week. There will be a show of some kind. I'm not sure if it'll be an abbreviated show or a different kind of thing. I may record it earlier in the week. But I want to make sure that you guys have something to listen to over that weekend. And I'll make sure to have something waiting for you on Saturday morning when I'm out running around and hanging out with family and all that. I also want to check in next week and make sure I wish you guys a Merry Christmas as well. So, abbreviated show next week. That's the moral of the story. Head over to RiverdalePodcast.com. There you're going to find the great Fernando Ruiz cover to Life with Archie number 33. You're going to find links to all of those news stories. Ton of news this week. Ton of cool stuff coming out. You want to click all those links. Check that stuff out. You'll find links there to write the show an email at RiverdalePodcast@yahoo.com. I'd love to hear more from you guys. Love to have more questions from you guys. Let me know what you're thinking about. Any questions you have, send them over to RiverdalePodcast@yahoo.com. You'll find links at RiverdalePodcast.com to like the show on Facebook. I got a bunch of Facebook likes. Love that. You can follow the show on Twitter. Riverdale Podcast is also affiliated with FirstComicsNews.com. They post our episodes on the following Monday. You get a lot more eyes and ears on the podcast. So head over to FirstComicsNews.com for comic news, podcast, reviews, lots of great stuff over there. So I guess that's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week in some abbreviated form. But until then, again, my name is Jonathan, and I'll see you next week here in lovely Riverdale, USA.